Yeah, there's some people that their critiques are more important than others. Like Tony Weiss.
Publishers, yes.
If Tony tells either of us, this part sucks, fix it, our response is, yes, ma'am. And then you go and do what she says, because she's the one that signs the checks. I actually have alpha readers that I trust, people that I've developed trust for over the years, because they tend to notice things that I don't. And so when I kick out my manuscripts, I pay a lot of attention to what these people say, especially if it's to their specific things that they're good at. Stuff that's not their area of expertise, I don't care. Yeah, so it just kind of depends.
Sorry. I'm just, I feel okay.
Oh man, we've had so many issues with these mics this car.
I have no issue at all with it at the moment, except that.
You can take it off the stand.
Well, no, but that would be no fun. Okay.
Well, we didn't figure out how the little screw thingy worked earlier.
Okay, some of us figured it out sooner than others of us.
The fantasy off of me to get a mic at that time, they just said I could yell.
That's good. Let me say one thing about Tony. Tony is great at saying, I have a problem, here it is, and not, now fix it this way. Okay?
Yeah.
The other thing that she's really good at is saying, okay, this book is done, and it works, but in this book, you did thus and so. And you've done that several times now in different books. You might want to consider doing it differently in the next book. I'm not going to go back and try and tear this one apart because it works, it's successful. But for you as a writer, you might want to consider avoiding doing X in the next book.
I've heard some horror stories from author friends that have different editors where the editor goes back and basically tells them, do this, do this, do this, and it totally rewrites the book, but no longer the author's image. I've seen where authors truly come to hate their own books because the finished product is not their book at all.
A smart editor does not do that.
True story, I told Dave about this yesterday. One time Tony Weisskopf sent me back the manuscript, and the actual, I kid you not, editorial on this one scene was, this scene sucks. Make it not suck. And she was right. And I was like, all right. But it was up to me to figure out why it sucked and how to fix it in my voice.
The thing that I most regret about Tony's duties at Bain today are that she doesn't have the time to edit that she used to have.
Yeah.
And that means that we're losing that voice. We're not getting as much of it as we need. I'll tell you something else too. I've said this for decades, and I think that it's true, even though it is more irritating for me to put up with myself than it used to be. When your editor stops telling you if they think you're doing something wrong, you're screwed. Okay?
Yeah.
When you get to the point that they're going to say, you know what, either he's too big a pain in the butt to edit, or he's not going to do it anyway, or even worse, okay, it'll sell whatever we do to it, okay, then you got a problem. All right? Now, I am not the easiest person in the world to edit. And the reason I'm not, there are two reasons, really, I think, why I'm not the easiest person in the world to edit. One is I have a very strong notion of where I was going when I did it in the form I submitted. Tony and I were working on one book, and she's like, okay, this really, I got a problem here because, this, and I said, well, I thought about that, and the reason I did this is boom. And she said, yeah, but what about, and I said, yeah, I thought about that too, and the reason I did this is boom. And she said, but how about, and I said, yeah, I thought about that too, and the reason I did this is boom. And she said, we've been through this entire book, and every point that I'm questioning what you're doing, you've done it after considering different alternatives, and the one that you did works best out of the alternatives that you suggested. So I don't think there's a way for me to improve it, because I'm not going to tell you how to change it, okay? There's a difference between an editor who realizes you're doing that and therefore doesn't lightly charge in and say, well, you need to really think about this because guess what, you thought about it already. and an editor who is willing to say, okay, you thought about this, and I understand that, and you're still freaking wrong. Okay? And sometimes you need them to tell you that. Not very often in my case. Sometimes.
I know a guy, and this is to give you an opposite example of how it works some places, and luckily me and David don't have this where we're at. A friend of mine in a big publishing house, one of the big major publishing houses, wrote his first book, and he was doing okay, and he had a deal for the second book. Turned in the second book. It was a 200,000 word epic fantasy novel, so good-sized epic fantasy. The editor came back and said, I want you to change this, gave this giant list of rewrites. And the thing is, I read every version of this book, one of his alpha readers. It was a great book. It was a really good book. And I went through and I read it all and I was like, wow, this is a great book, but all this stuff he told you, it's good suggestions, but it's a totally different book. So he did as he was told. He put in everything he was supposed to, took out all the things he wanted up. And he got done, it was 250,000 words. Editor came back and said, that's good. Now cut it down to 150,000 words. And if you work in word count, that's pretty flippant significant. So he did this. But then the thing you realize is every time he would do this, and he would turn the book into his editor, he'd have to wait like 4 or 6 months before he got critique back. And so what was happening is he kept having to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. Our first books came out about the same time. Well, then my second book came out. My third book came out. My fourth book came out. He's still doing rewrites. And so what's happening is my career was kind of doing this, because every time a book comes out, you get some new readers, and people go back and buy your backlist. This poor guy was 5 years in, and his first book was falling off everybody's radar. Yeah. And the editor was still making the tweaks. And every version he turned in was a really good book.
But, I have actually seen, and I will not tell you where I saw this.
I'm trying not to get used to.
I actually saw an editor, in my opinion, deliberately kill a book by keeping it wrapped up in edits. Okay? And I thought it was the most cowardly, underhanded thing I had ever seen anybody do in its entire life.
Yeah, just break the contract and let the guy get on with his life.
Okay? Either that or hand it to somebody else to edit. Because clearly, he just wanted to kill the book. He loathed the book. And so he was sending it back for edit after edit after edit after edit, kind of thing. And it was ridiculous. But that's what he was doing. I don't think I've ever had an impasse with an editor.
Me either. I've been really lucky in that respect. I've had good ones.
Well, I said something to Tony. This was actually before the first of my books. Insurrection was out. It was before the first of my solos had come out. Jim Bain bought 5 of my novels before the first one published, which was really cool because he got to pay first novel pittances for all of them. But when you pile 5 first novel pittances up in one place, it's a fairly good shade. Yeah. And so and my cash flow had been so tight before this that I was actually able to transition to writing full time as a living before my first novel came out. Okay, and that only happens with somebody like Jim Bain.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Sorry.
And so I was like, and then the Honor Harrington came along and he wrote me a 4-book contract before the first one had even been written yet. Okay, which was that helps. But Tony said to me at one point, I said, well, we were talking about one of the books, and I said, well, I'm trying to be, professional about this, okay? And she said to me, I took it as a huge compliment. She said, as far as Jim and I are concerned, you are a professional writer who just hasn't happened to be published yet. She said, you are responding the way that you are supposed to respond to this. Now, of course, Jim didn't know what I had done. Did I tell you about that?
Steve White.
No. Mutineer's Moon and the Armageddon Inheritance. Jim really didn't want to buy those books. Okay, he was like, oh man, they got all these problems. You need to change this, you need to change that, you need to change the other. And I'm like, I didn't think they were that bad. And he's like, oh man, he actually said to me, he said, all right, go ahead, I'll publish these two under a pseudonym. And then you do one that, like, I'm telling you to do it, and we'll publish it under your name, and we'll see which one sells better. And I said, well, let me think about it. So I went away and I decided that, okay, 20%, 15, 20% of what he said, he was right on. 15, 20%, I could kind of like, go either way. 60%, he was so far out to lunch, it wasn't even funny. So what I did is I sat down and I changed the 15 or the 20% that he was right about. I just figured I'd hold the 15, 20% that I could live with in reserve as a bargaining tool. Okay? And then I did a global re-edit and changed every was not into wasn't and every is not into isn't. And in the process, I took about 8,000 words out of each bullet. And I sent it back to him and I said, Jim, I've considered what you said and I've given effect to the parts of it that I agree with. And in the process, I've reduced the word count in each book by about 7,500 words. What do you think? He said, this is perfect! This is exactly what I wanted! and I'm like, thank you, Jim. He bought the books. And so there's ways you can respond to editorial criticism that don't necessarily mean going, okay, fine, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that.
You gain trust as you go, too, because, like, I have a lot of blunt, goofy humor that Tony doesn't necessarily get, but because I come from a different background, different culture, and there's a few times where it's like, I've had my hill that I'm going to die on. And for example, the troll, Melvin, but he uses the word Poe, P-W-N, and Tony kept trying to change that. I was like, nope, it's got to be Poe. He got Poe. And Tony's like, I have no idea what that means. But I was like, you have to trust me. It works. And so there's sometimes you just have like a different point of view with your editor, which is good too, because sometimes you're writing stuff that you know more about than you do. With Tony, if you ever screw up anything related to a sword.
Oh God, you are dead.
And if she tells you something is wrong about a sword, just go ahead and fix it because she's right.
Okay. And never refer to chainmail armor.
Oh, yeah.
There's armor and there's chainmail, and the two do not meet. Now, fortunately, I already knew this, but one of my co-writers did not.
And plate mail.
Yes.
Yes, it's plate. It's not plate mail. And Tony will. And no matter how many times you've seen it in a movie, a Japanese sword cannot cut through the barrel of an M1 Garand.
Unless it's Merlin Atross's katana, which is made out of battle steel that has edge 1 molecule across.
Yeah.
Then it can.
Yeah, I mean, Ashok's sword makes demons blow up like popcorn kernels. I mean, so you can cheat. But,
yeah.
Which is funny, so I got corrected. I did that on Group Noir, and Tony yelled at me. And then during Monster Hunter Memoirs, because the character Chad that John Ryu created is basically a weeaboo, Japanophile guy. And so he makes some references to that. And I saw that in the edit, so I was like, ha, Tony's going to rip you. Oh, crap, this is my problem. I'm going to fix that before Tony sees it.
I remember when Steve White and I did Crusade, I got this letter from Tony. At this point, I was still doing like chapter synopses, and sending them in with the manuscript, because I did the manuscript this way. So I got this letter from her. It was 10-point type. And it started right under the rocket ship on the main, and it went all the way down to the last line on their signature was like in this corner over there. And it was all things that I don't see how this can work. I don't see how the commander of the enemy fleet can come over to our side, kind of thing. You'll never be able to make this work, such a thing. I sent her a 22-page letter in which I took every single one of her questions and I said, now, if you will look at chapter so-and-so on page such and such of the manuscript, here's what I do. Went all the way through, sent it back to her. We changed one character's name. That was all we did. Okay? And I said, Tony, will it be okay if I don't send you chapter synopses anymore so that you have to read the manuscript? And she said, I think that might not be a bad idea.
Some things you learn how you work, and you just kind of get more efficient as you go. It's been fun for me too, because I've had, at band, I've had books edited by Tony, I've had books edited by Jim Mins, Tony Daniel, and so each one is different, it has a different perspective on it, and they tend to try to leave a series with one person.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to get that feedback.
The other thing that a good editor does is you don't muck around with a series. Even if you've identified a fault with the writing, you don't drastically change the writing in mid-course in the story to deal with the fault you found, because the law of unintended consequences is the only one that cannot be repealed. And you're going to have a situation in which, okay, I fixed this, and oh my God, look how it screwed up the continuity